Welcome to Life in Alberta, a new channel dedicated to cover everything Albertan. Today we have the Average Albertan Podcast, second edition. In the first episode, Ryan was on and we talked Oilers and the first round of the playoffs. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. We had a good discussion. Today is episode number 2, and Ryan is back. And also, Eric is with us today. And Eric is a long-time hardcore Leafs fan. You can imagine the discussion we have about the Leafs and their first-round exit. Two average Albertans talking about their passion for hockey. Great episode. If you find this content interesting and helpful and you want to give it a like and share it out and subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the episode. And whether you're a Flames fan or an Oilers fan, the Battle of Alberta is back. Alberta channel. So welcome Ryan and Eric to the show.
Hello.
Good day, good day.
So let's hear from Eric first, because Eric's the new guest on the show. So Eric, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm very depressed right now for obvious reasons. Been a Leaf fan for a very long time. With all the joy that brings me. I always tell people that it's similar to smoking. It doesn't give you much, but you just can't quit. And that's kind of where I am, right? When it comes to being a Leaf fan, it's something else. As a 56-year-old, I did experience them winning the cup, but unfortunately, I was 1 at the time, and that really didn't do much for me. So I'd like to see something else, but so far, that doesn't appear like it's going to happen. Well, we know it's not going to happen this year, but oh well. There's always next year, kind of territory that I've been doing for a long time now. So.
Yeah, Leafs fan, they've got that probably tattooed on their arm. There's always next year, right?
Yeah, there's other things tattooed, but we keep our sleeves down so people can't see what we have tattooed, because it's just frustrating beyond demand. You get up, they set the most points they've ever had this year. They looked really positive. I mean, Tampa was a very tough opponent, and certainly can't be taken lightly. I don't think anybody expected the Leafs in 4 or anything along those lines. But at the same time, it just, you thought it was going to happen. I mean, then they get to play Florida, which isn't a great joy either, but still, so it was tough.
Well, thanks, Eric. And Ryan, welcome back. Well, how are you feeling, Ryan, the last couple of days here?
It's been great. Battle of Alberta is going to be electric here. It's fans in the building. There's going to be a lot of emotion in those buildings. It's going to be like you won't be able to hear the refs. It's going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be quite the electric energy for the next couple of weeks in Alberta. Yeah. All right, Eric. Let's go back a little bit. Growing up as a Leafs fan, I guess you've been a Leafs fan all your life then?
Well, kind of yes and no. So the Oilers didn't come into the league until I was 14. And by that point, although I would say the Leafs were kind of my second team, my team was the New York Islanders. And really, really loved the Islanders. Of course, they were the thing going down at the time. So you saw a lot of Islander games. And also, I thought at the time, as a young fan, they would be the ones that could actually take Montreal off the championship table. and I hated Montreal. They would win all the time. There was no stopping them. It was heartbreaking to see Lafleur, may he rest in peace, score that goal. I remember it very, very well because I thought finally Boston is going to, do something. And yeah, so I wanted Montreal gone. And it looked like the Islanders were kind of up and comers. I think they played them in a series, and it was like 6 games. And they pushed them to 6 games, which was pretty good. And the Islanders were young. So I really liked the Islanders. That dynasty ended. But before that, growing up, all you could do is you could watch 2 teams on TV, Hockey Night in Canada. And it was Montreal and Toronto. Montreal was winning all the time. Toronto was Toronto. And it just, and I thought, I'm not cheering for Montreal. And I would cheer for Toronto. One of the biggest memories for me was February 7th, 1976. And of course, that was Daryl Sittler's 10 points. And Sittler to this day is still my favorite Leaf. Even though that ended badly, I think he ended up ripping off his captaincy, being angry at Ballard. But anyway, yeah, it's Leaf drama. But I think that's when it first started. And then after the Islanders kind of fizzled out, and certainly the Oilers weren't doing much, the Leafs kind of came back into my focus. And that would have been probably around 91, I guess. And it's been 91, pretty hard Leaf fan. And get everything. Like you wouldn't believe the Twitter stuff that's been sent towards me, all friends sending me, all the things about ha ha ha, Leafs suck and all this kind of stuff. Nasty people out there, really do.
And it's been since 1967 since the Leafs won the Cup. I'm sure over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that ribbing kind of, continues on. Is it something that you expect now, or is it something that enough's enough? Like,
no, you gotta laugh at yourself, right? And if you're a Leaf fan, you better laugh hard because there's mirrors everywhere, and that's the way it works. And so yeah, you can get all pissy about it if you wish, but generally, yeah, you gotta live it. And being a Leaf fan is, kind of, it's like its own tagline kind of thing. It writes its own joke every year, it seems. But there you go. And you get a lot of hope. Do I think they'll prevail eventually? I absolutely do. I think they're closer than ever. So I can't abandon them now. Oh my God, they're closer than ever, for God's sake, but yeah, you got to laugh at yourself. Now I'm in with many forums, and oh my God, these Leaf fans, and I consider myself one, but they're nasty people, like the McDavid memes and things along those lines. And I've just recently read, well, good for Edmonton, but they weren't playing the Stanley Cup champion, so it doesn't really count. It wasn't as hard as we had to fight. And I just think, shut up and win. Seriously, just shut up. And if you want to stop, feeling bad, just win. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. And, I agree with you in terms of the Montreal teams of the past. Growing up, I was always against Montreal. That's why I kind of favored Boston. Boston was my team before Edmonton. And then Vancouver was my team. And yeah, you root for the underdog a lot of times, and Boston and the Islanders early on were the underdogs.
For sure.
Well, Ryan, I know in the last episode you mentioned that Toronto was your least favorite team. And I have to ask you.
Yeah.
It's not because they win, that's for sure. But anyway. So.
Once they were eliminated a couple nights ago, how'd that make you feel?
It was a relief. Honestly, it was a relief, and especially the way it happened. They had 2 chances to close out the series, and the Stars. Well, shouldn't say all the stars never showed up, but the key, Marner, Matthews, they really never picked it up in the last 2 games. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, it's nice to watch them struggle after all the hype that they get all year long.
Yeah.
It's all you hear is Toronto and Matthews and Marner. It's all year long. It just gets exhausting. So it's nice, like listening to the radio today. It was nice them saying that the only 2 Canadian teams left are the 2 in Alberta in the West, and it's going to force the East to watch the West.
Yeah,
and actually, show a little interest in the West, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, and Eric, that leads us to the next question: is do you think that the Eastern media treats the Western teams fairly, or is it obviously biased?
It's obviously biased, 100%. Yeah, no, because I'm an Edmontonian, born and raised, and no way. It's the TSN, Toronto Sports Network. It's just nothing but hype all the time. There's a joke. There really isn't a joke. The Leafs one year won the Norris division way back in the 80s or something, and they got rings made because they won the Norris division. and like that's how pathetically sad it is. So somebody's walking around with the Norris division championship ring. And I think the media, like I can go back to Stan Fisher, who was more of a Montreal reporter. I really think that the West was seen as the hinterland. Vancouver had a team in 1970s when they started, but generally it was like, we're all that in a bag of chips, and you guys, good luck. And even though Gretzky did everything, and I mean, we know what a dynasty that team was, and I think it's been labeled the best team of the century or something to that effect.
Right.
Yeah, it's the 85 team. I think that was the best.
Yeah,
team.
It was the 85 team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's the bias is still there. Rocky Saganuk was a better player than Wayne Gretzky, kind of thing. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I think there's a huge bias. Also in Montreal, though. So when it comes to an Eastern bias, yeah, for sure. Edmonton and Calgary, Vancouver, forget it. So
yeah, okay. And Ryan, last Oiler Cup, 1990. It's been a while before you were born. So yes, it's been a while for the Leafs. But it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
It's relative to your life. So do you see anything different this year with the Oilers? Do you see them as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender? Or, are you just going to be satisfied with a second round exit if it goes that way?
I don't see, it's McDavid. McDavid makes them that contender. The last 2 games of the Oilers of the Oilers series, McDavid ratcheted up. He played his 2 best games probably in his career. He's letting everybody know that he is the best player on the planet, and there's no question about it. So I think as long as we have that McDavid factor, you can't count Edmonton out. They're going to be tough in on Calgary. Calgary reminds me of the Calgary team this year. Reminds me of the 2017 Oilers. Big, tough, and will just grind you into the ice with a little bit of skill. So it's going to be tough to get past them. But I think if we get past them, I think we can get it to the final. And once you get to the final, it's you never know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess the next question I want to ask is, we know McDavid, we know Draisaitl, we know Smith in the series they had. Who was that one player? We'll go with the Oilers since they made it to the next round. That stood out was the unsung hero of round 1 for Edmonton. We'll start with you, Ryan.
Well, I'm not sure if you call him the unsung hero, but out of the players you listed, you have to go with Kane. 7 goals. I believe he had 9 points. So he matched. Kane matched, Matthews. Well, actually scored more goals than Matthews, had less assists, but he just as that secondary scorer, he 7 goals goes a long way in a series, especially a 7-game series.
Okay. And how about you, Eric? Who was
Uh,
your unsung hero?
You know what? I'm going to go with Russell. What? He only played in one game or whatever, I think. But you know what? In game 6, because of course he had to be called up, he was blocking shots. He was doing what he does. And I was really impressed with him. That's a big loss. When you lose your number one defenseman in an elimination game, it's huge. And to see him step up the way he did, um, I realized he couldn't do that for 7 games, but he did it for the one, and
Well,
it really made a difference.
he played in the 7th game as well. Like
He was in the
earned himself a spot on the
Okay.
game 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there you go. So I was really impressed with him. I do agree, though, Kane, with all his controversy, and that we'll save the fact that should they sign him again for another podcast, because that would be a very long one. He has been really good, and who didn't love when he flashed game 7, like shove it, LA fans. I loved it. And even though it's like, oh, it's arrogant, yeah, well, the guy before was doing his little ear thing in game 6.
What?
Or game 5, sorry. So, it's like, yeah, no, I thought it was beautiful.
I said on the last video that Kane is exactly what the Oilers needed. That little bit of a FU kind of to the other team.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I like that.
So just a quick answer on this one. Then we're going to look at round 2 of the playoffs and get some predictions from you guys. The biggest difference, what was the biggest difference that allowed Edmonton to finally take that step and win that first round? They weren't successful against Chicago. They weren't successful against Winnipeg. Was it the coach? Was it Kane? Was it goaltending? Just a quick answer, Ryan. We'll start with you. What was the biggest difference?
Well, game 4 and 5, we took a bit of a shot in the mouth. I definitely thought I started to panic myself, thinking that we were going to get Jonathan Quick. I thought that he was going to steal the series for them. But in game 6, I mean, we talked about McDavid, but Woodcroft outcoached McClellan. I think he put a masterclass in on coaching, just the way that he did the 11 and 7 with the forwards. Usually you would run your 2 best centermen through the 4th line, but he was running the best centermen through the 2nd line, which was Kane and Hyman. So he was getting just the way he coached it. I mean, I had no idea who was going over the boards with who, but he made it work, and I don't think LA had an answer for that.
Okay, how about you, Eric? What was the big change from previous years for Edmonton?
Kane, easy. It's Kane. You finally had a winger who is capable. Like, he's amazingly great. He's a power winger. That's what you needed. And we sure could have used it against Winnipeg. Sure could have used it against Chicago, because everybody else is relatively the same. McDavid was always great, but Kane has been a difference. So yeah.
Kind of reminds me of the 2006 run with Pronger, just being that stud on defense, right? That Pronger was what allowed Edmonton to make the final, in my opinion. Without Pronger, they probably don't even make the playoffs that year.
No, that's right.
And Kane is that X factor, definitely in round 1. All right, let's go on to round 2 on the playoffs. And we're going to leave Edmonton-Calgary to the end, but let's start in the East. So in the East, we have the 2 Florida teams, Florida and Tampa Bay. Eric, who wins the series? How many games?
I'm going to go Tampa wins the series, and I think it's going to go 6.
Okay, and Ryan?
Well, yeah, this is going to be boring. Yeah, I think the same. Tampa and 6.
Okay.
Washington kind of showed how you could shut down Florida. I mean, it didn't last long enough, but I think Tampa can roll out the formula to shut down Florida.
Okay, I'm going to go Florida in 6. I think Toronto took a lot out of Tampa. Tampa is, getting up there in age, and I just don't know if they have the stamina to go against that really good Florida team. The other series, we have the Rangers versus Carolina. Again, it's going to be an interesting series. The Ranger goalie, Shesterkin, is up for the Hart as well against McDavid and Matthews. He's been hot and cold in the first round. Long series against Pittsburgh. Start with you, Ryan, this time. Carolina, Rangers, who wins how many games?
I thought for sure Pittsburgh was going to make it through. To be honest, I thought the experience was going to outweigh the youth of New York. So I'm going to say New York's time is up. I want to say Carolina in 5.
Okay, and Eric?
Gonna agree, but not in 5. I think it's gonna be 6. I think Rod Brind'Amour is a gamer. He's a beauty. He was a beauty against the Oilers when they were playing him in 2006. So it's the same. Yeah, I just think Carolina will rise above that, and I'm going to say in 6.
Okay, and I'm going to go with the Rangers. I just think the Rangers have better goaltending. I don't know if I could trust Antti Ranta, and with the injury to Freddie Anderson, I think the Rangers are going to gut it out, and it's going to go 6 or 7. I'll call the Rangers in 6.
Who did Anderson play for before he? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, what was that Eastern team?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's move on. Okay, yeah.
All right, off to the West now. 2 teams that have had a lot of rest compared to the other teams. We got Colorado and St. Louis. I think it's going to be a real dirty series. I think it's going to be hard hitting, in your face. Colorado on paper, the best skilled team, but St. Louis has that experience and grit. I'm going to go Colorado. I think it's finally their year to break through. I'm going to go Colorado in 6. Eric, how about you?
I'm going to have to agree with you, but I think as nasty as the Oilers series is going to be, and I know I'm being a bit preemptive here, but there are 2 big teams, and St. Louis is a big team. People forget that. They've had some goaltending issues and throughout this year. So, but I can't see Colorado being touched. I think it's going to be nasty. I hope for whoever the victor is in the Pacific, that's good for the Central to be like that. So I think 6 for Colorado.
Okay, and Ryan?
Yeah, Colorado's been sitting there for a week waiting for an opponent. Any injuries they had, they're probably all rested up and ready to go again. I'm going to say Colorado in 5.
Okay. I think the X factor again could be goaltending. Colorado may be a little rusty. We have that long break, and maybe game 1 they're a little rusty. But goaltending I think for both teams is questionable. Binnington came in, after a couple games in St. Louis, and Kemper I believe is still injured. So they went with Francoeur, I believe, in Colorado. So all of us go in Colorado. All right, finally, Edmonton-Calgary. Now take off your homer hats here, boys, and let's think about this logically, or with your heart, whatever you want. Ryan, you first. You're the huge Oiler fan. How do you see this series going?
Well, I said earlier, Calgary reminded me of the 2017 Oilers, and they were one bad call away from getting to round 3. That being said, Edmonton seems to be clicking on all cylinders. Like, we had except for the one game, we had no problem scoring goals last series, and Calgary at times struggled. We'll have to say Edmonton in 7.
Edmonton in 7. Okay, yeah. So another long series. Eric?
It's really hard because there's the Hart, and the Hart will never go to Calgary. Never, ever. Roast, spit. But there's the head, and the head says Calgary has better goaltending. Calgary has better defense. Edmonton does have better forwards, and that's 2 out of 3. And so, God help me, and I hope I'm absolutely. And I need, you got a 40-year-old goalie who's played 7 games in 14 days, and I don't know what Koskinen's going to bring. So I gotta use my head on this one, and I'm going to say Calgary, and I hate it, but I'm going to say Calgary in 7.
Okay, so yeah, and I'm right there with you, Eric. I think Edmonton's goaltending might be a little flawed in this series. Smith, like you said, 40 years old, hasn't had a lot of rest. I really think, though, it's going to come down to whether they can neutralize Tkachuk. They haven't been able to do that recently. And is Kane the guy that can neutralize him? Is Cassian a guy that can step up and neutralize him to at least take the agitation out of the game a little bit? Because I think that does get under the skin of Edmonton. So I think if they can neutralize Tkachuk, I think it'll be a little longer series. But I have to go Calgary in 6. I just think Edmonton is at least a year away, maybe 2 years away from making that long run.
Well, I hope you're wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. But
I think the deciding factor is going to be Draisaitl, to be honest. If he can get healed up in time for the start of the series.
Yeah,
he was hobbling around the ice there for the last couple of games of LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, and against Calgary, it's not going to get any lighter in terms of the physicality. So interesting to watch. They play every second day. Does Koskinen get in there? One of those days. I think if Mike Smith has a bad game 1 and 2, I think we see Koskinen. But otherwise, I think it's Mike Smith's game to win or lose, series to win or lose. And again,
he could, right? Like, he could be as great as he's been, and he has been good. It's really hard to criticize him at all. He had that little bit of a problem on game 1, whatever, but that really, whatever. That was just blown up more in the media. I really think if he can play the way he has, it becomes an even Steven on the goaltending. And that really makes it a tough series, right? Like, I don't think Calgary's so much bigger and tougher, even though they seem to be. The media seems to think that. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I don't like Calgary winning because that just sucks. And yeah, let's do some history here. They've played Edmonton 5 times, and they've never won a series against Edmonton if Edmonton doesn't score on themselves. Just saying. So ever. So don't score on yourself. That's number 1. Thank you, Steve Smith. And, so from a history perspective, now keep in mind, of course, those teams were much better than Calgary, but still, I think Edmonton's going in as absolutely the underdog on this one. And even with McDavid. So we'll see what happens. There you go.
Okay. All right. Ryan, any closing comments? Anything, that you're looking forward to other than just that rivalry? It's been, 31 years since a Calgary-Edmonton playoff series?
The year I was born.
There you go. Yeah, it's been a long time. I think Alberta, like you said earlier, are going to be electric, going to be on fire, and that Twitter exchange is going to be crazy over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, closing remarks, I guess. I don't know. It's going to be... I mean, I just want to mention that in my first round predictions, I was 6 for 8. So, I mean, not too bad. I mean, but I don't know if it's an effect of having fans in the stands now, but it was a lot of long series last round. So I'm hoping for a lot of long series again this round. I know I have a couple ended in a 5, but I don't know. Team seems more amped up to play rather than sitting in a bubble.
All right. And Eric, how about you? Any closing statement?
No, just I'm really, really hoping for the Oil. Looking forward to it. And I think it'll be a long series anyway. So, it's not beyond the round to say 6 or 7 games. And I think it will be one where mistakes will cost the series. Like, I think it will be tight. They're not that far apart as teams. And I think Calgary's a little bit tougher, but I think Edmonton has more finesse. And I'll be brutally honest, I'll really be focusing on that one. That's the one I'm excited about. The other ones will be interesting, but nothing compared to the oil and the shames. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I think we would all agree. We just hope it doesn't come down to the reffing, and that bad calls cost the game. There's always reffing in question, but we just hope we don't see that, Brett Hall type of goal to end off a series.
Well, I'm okay with the bad reffing, and I'm also okay with that as long as it goes in Edmonton's favor. So I really, seriously, I could not care a tad if Calgary's like mad about bad calls or there was a misplaced call. Keep in mind, go back in history, the Islanders. If you ever go and see the Islanders when they won the first cup in overtime against Philadelphia, John Tortorelli, sorry. No, I think I had that wrong.
Tonelli,
yeah. Tortorella. He was so offside, it was frightening, but they didn't have that. And he scored an overtime goal. He was offside. It was terrible. And you know what? The Islanders still won the cup. They still skated around. They still had a dynasty. And I was cheering for them. I felt fine. So I'm thinking, if it has to happen, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it's very noble of you. But you know what? As long as Calgary gets screwed, I'm okay.
Yeah, for sure. And we started the episode kind of making fun and poking fun at the Leafs and Leaf fans and the misery of the last, 50 plus years. You've seen a lot of, jokes and memes come your way. Let's end off. What was a joke, a jab that even made you laugh?
You know what? It was the most recent one that I actually posted. You might have seen it. There's a guy, he's in looks like his man cave, which is probably a garage, and he's wearing his Leaf jersey, and he's on the phone, and he's like, yeah, the boys tried hard there, didn't they? They really tried hard. And he goes in, and he still, you don't see him. You see just the cameras in one angle. And he goes in, and he comes, and he's still talking on the phone, so you hear the narrative. And he's like, they tried hard. Well, there's always next year, eh? And then you see him emerge from where he was, and he's wearing an Oilers sweater and an Oilers hat, and he sits down, cracks a beer, and he says, okay, Oil, what do you got? And you know what? That's me. Like, oh my God, that's my life, right? I have two teams, and more times than not, it's going to be Edmonton that's gone further. And so it made me laugh out loud. And it, somebody recognized what it's like to be a Leaf fan, because you don't last that second round right now. So that's where it goes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for joining the Alberta Average Albertan kind of podcast. We hear a lot from the mainstream media and Gene Princip and, Mark Spector and all those guys, but I'm really hoping that Albertans like to tune in to average guys like us and hear opinions. And sometimes we get kind of drowned out by the guys that make all the money at the top. So I want to thank you guys for joining the episode. Hopefully we'll have a chance to talk again in the future on a future episode, especially if Edmonton gets by Calgary in the second round. That will make a, really fun conversation. And again, thanks for joining in, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Life in Alberta, and have a wonderful evening and enjoy the Battle of Alberta.